Across the globe, portals are beginning to open, linking Earth to other eras and unleashing into our world both ancient predators and creatures from a future yet to come. Helen Cutter is a paleontologist obsessed with studying space-time anomalies. One day, after an argument with her husband, a fellow professor, she heads into the forest of Dyne, only to unexpectedly encounter a gigantic dinosaur. She tries to hide in a metal barrel in a nearby supermarket, but her attempts at refuge are doomed. A massive gorgonopsid, relentlessly pursuing her, smashes everything in its path, forcing Helen to flee, after which she vanishes without a trace. 8 years later, Nick, Helen's missing husband, is consumed by guilt over her disappearance. He suspects she either ran away or discovered something that forced her to abandon her family. Now a professor of evolutionary biology at a university, Nick maintains close contact with only one person, Stephen. Not just his lab assistant but his best friend. Stephen is the one who supports Nick in everything. Their routine is interrupted by Connor, a highly unusual student obsessed with conspiracy theories. A classic nerd, Connor's ideas often seem both crazy and foolish. Yet he is a genuine expert on ancient creatures and has compiled an extensive archive of all known species that have ever lived on Earth. This knowledge, seemingly useless, suddenly gains importance when news comes in of strange occurrences in the forest where Helen disappeared. A questionable photo sparks little trust, but Nick and Stephen decide to investigate, seeking the unknown creature frightening local residents. At the same time, Abby, a young zookeeper recently laid off, arrives in town. Obsessed with lizards, she's there to help a teenager who discovered a strange reptile. On her first encounter with the creature, named Rex, Abby realizes it isn't a modern reptile, it's something not of this time. While surveying the area, Nick, Stephen, and Connor are shocked. A truck lies almost completely destroyed, metal fences are twisted, and the ground is littered with animal and human blood. Nick remains skeptical, theorizing it could be a bear or a panther, even though he knows such predators shouldn't inhabit the area. The situation grows more terrifying when Abby, and later a group of men, discover a cow's corpse hanging from a tree. It becomes clear that the predator is incredibly strong and unlikely to have survived hidden in the forest for its entire life. Back at the hotel, Nick unexpectedly meets a charming woman named Claudia. Trying to fend off a persistent suitor, she kisses the professor and then reveals that she works for the Ministry of Internal Affairs. She's come to study the same strange phenomena as Nick. Meanwhile, Abby discovers that Rex can fly, and a teenager spots a temporal rift. Peering in with just his head, he sees another world, Earth, 30 to 40 million years in the past, teeming with hundreds of species of dinosaurs and other creatures. Frightened, the boy hides at home, but injures his hand along the way. A predatory gorgonopsid tracks him by scent and attempts to break into the house, only to be repelled by loud music. Seeing the mess in her son's room, his mother dismisses his wild story about a dinosaur attack. Meanwhile, Abby, who has also seen the gorgonopsid, has befriended Rex and gained the little prehistoric creature's trust. Sensing danger, Rex hides and even shows the way to safety. Lost in the night forest, Abby encounters a Scutosaurus and panics, assuming it's another predator. Luckily, a team led by Nick arrives, assuring her that this dinosaur species poses no threat to humans. The scientists are shocked, struggling to understand how dinosaurs could appear in a normal city park. Realizing the potential implications, Claudia quickly contacts higher authorities to classify the case and prevent public panic. She and her boss, Lester, take control of the investigation but allow Nick to continue, focused on finding his missing wife. To execute their plan, the team scares the Scutosaurus and watches where it seeks shelter, which leads them to discover a space-time rift connecting different eras on Earth. The next morning, government agents, special forces, and a team of specialists arrive at the scene. They collect samples and capture Rex to study him in a secure laboratory. While Nick and Abby head to the government facility to sign non-disclosure agreements, Connor and Stephen continue tracking other dinosaurs. Naive Connor briefly imagines Abby might become his girlfriend, but his hopes are quickly dashed when it becomes clear she has feelings for Stephen. While handling Rex, the scientists make a mistake, allowing him to escape. The small prehistoric reptile is free, but the modern world frightens him. Abby lures Rex back with food, pleading for him to stay, knowing she's the only one who can care for him. Meanwhile, the scientists trace the predator's tracks, determining its type and identifying what it fears. At the same time, the gorgonopsid once again pursues the boy, following the scent of his blood to his school. Bursting inside, it wreaks havoc, leaving Stephen as the only person who can distract or stop it. That evening, Nick decides to enter the anomalous zone to travel through time. He brings Rex along and is accompanied by Captain Ryan, tasked with ensuring his safety. Searching for Helen, Nick discovers a skeleton, but realizes it belongs to a man, not his wife. He also finds her camera, proving Helen had been there for some time. Soon, Captain Ryan notices the Anomalies' magnetic field weakening and urges a return. Nick resists, but Ryan uses force to compel him back, and they manage to escape just moments before the anomaly disappears. Rex returns to the present as well, but no one notices him, except Abby, who decides to make the prehistoric reptile her pet. Meanwhile, the group is attacked by a vicious gorgonopsid, and the military fails to stop it. Steven proves his courage, charging onto the clearing in a vehicle, first ramming and then shooting the dinosaur. Nick realizes that whatever is happening, this is only the beginning of a series of strange events. That same evening, he finds a living ammonite on his desk and catches a glimpse of his wife running into the distance, confirming that she is still alive. A few days later, giant spiders appear in the London subway, scaring passengers and even trying to attack some of them. People panic and flee, while journalists can only speculate about what's happening. Connor, who's finally stepped out of being just a nerd to become a somewhat important member of the team, decides to show off to his friends. He spills government secrets, but they just look at him like he's crazy, dismissing his story as the ramblings of a lunatic. After hearing about the chaos in the subway, Connor wants to prove himself and check things out firsthand. Knowing he's actually a coward, he sees it as a chance to be near the girl he likes, so he invites Abby to join him in exploring the subway for new monsters. What starts as a romantic little adventure quickly goes wrong. Abby realizes Connor is dragging her into a situation he's not ready for. The guy is clueless, and a coward, so she texts Steven, asking him and the rest of the team to join them immediately. That night, Abby and Connor set up camp by the river, when suddenly they hear strange noises. They catch sight of a terrifyingly familiar shape, another dinosaur. Screaming, they try to hide, only to realize it's Connor's friends playing a prank on him. The police show up, and Connor tries to explain everything again. No one believes him, until Nick arrives and learns Connor can't keep a secret, promptly kicking him off the team. Hours later, news comes in about an attack on a subway maintenance worker by an unknown predator. The man didn't see the spider until it struck, injecting him with venom. Doctors are skeptical that it could be a spider bite, reasoning that the spider would have to be human-sized, which is physically impossible. Meanwhile, the team realizes this is another anomaly, but this one leads back to the Carboniferous period, about 300 million years ago. Nick and Claudia convince Lester to shut down the subway line so they can carry out an operation to track and find the giant spiders. When they arrive, the first team sent inside is a special squad of armed soldiers. They search every room, only to suddenly find hundreds of giant spiders above them. The spiders attack, injuring several soldiers, but Captain Ryan forbids firing back, realizing that retaliation would only make things worse. Later, Nick, Steven, and Abby go down into the subway themselves. They don't use weapons, instead, they rely on powerful flashlights, since bright light repels the spiders and forces them to flee. The trio discovers another anomaly, but Abby notices there's something else lurking nearby. In the next moment, they're attacked by a giant, legged centipede displaying incredible aggression. The 10-meter monster lunges at Steven, but Nick jumps in to protect him and Abby. Acting as a distraction, he tells them to run and draws the monster's attention, then hides in an isolated room while trying to locate Helen. As the team figures out how to deal with the creature, they realize that Connor is the only one who knows everything about living organisms. Steven insists on bringing the nerd back into the group and goes to find him, since Nick has gone off the grid. Using an open flame, Steven manages to scare off the monster, but is then attacked by the centipede, which Connor identifies as an arthropleura. He assumes it's non-venomous, but he's wrong. Steven is seriously injured and could die. Before heading to the hospital, Steven invites Abby on a date and tells Nick that he saw his wife alive and unharmed. Abby rushes to the hospital after Steven and learns that the only way to save him is to get the venom to create an antidote. Nick volunteers to act as bait and puts on a special protective device on his arm designed to collect venom. Before going down, he sends in a special forces team. Using dozens of flashlights, they drive the spiders back, forcing them to return to their world. Soon the rest of the group descends into the basement, but they can't find the centipede. Connor remembers that they love burrows and spots a hole in the wall. Rushing after the creature, Connor, Nick, and the captain locate it and provoke it into attacking. Once Nick collects enough venom, Connor pushes the monster onto a transformer, and the electricity kills the giant prehistoric creature. The collected venom allows them to create an antidote and save Steven, though he doesn't remember confessing his feelings to Abby. The assistant also refuses to tell Claudia about Helen or confirm that she's alive. Meanwhile, Nick forgives Connor and allows him back on the team, recognizing that while he's a talkative nerd, his extensive knowledge makes him invaluable. Left alone with the anomaly, the professor realizes he must embark on a journey through the past, present, and future to find his wife. A few days later, a new anomaly appears, this time in an ordinary swimming pool. A massive, scaly creature resembling a giant crocodile bursts in and attacks a training athlete, swallowing him instantly before vanishing without a trace. A young woman who happens to be at the pool witnesses the horrifying scene. She tries to report it to the police, but the detectives don't believe her and even accuse her of murder. Claudia and Nick realize the charges are false and try to help her, but Lester dismisses the situation, claiming the life of one person is insignificant compared to national secrets. Meanwhile, Abby attempts to win back Steven's attention, reminding him of the date he supposedly invited her on after she was bitten by a centipede-like creature. Not only does the professor's assistant have no recollection of this, but he also mentions he already has a girlfriend. At the pool, the team inspects the bottom but finds no anomalies or anything suspicious. The next morning, the anomaly appears in a local lake. The monster circles around ordinary people's boats and violently expels the remains of the athlete, later discovered by the police. Lester doesn't rule out foul play, but to Nick, it's clear this is another anomaly. Considering the pattern of their appearances, he predicts the third anomaly will emerge soon and maps the most likely locations. Military and scientific teams arrive at the lake to study it. Connor notices the water level dropping rapidly, as if something is pulling it in. Nick realizes the anomaly is still in the lake, but the diving team doesn't know where to search. At one point, the professor spots steam rising above the water. Recognizing it as a temperature difference, he deduces the anomaly is nearby. He and Steven decide to join the divers to help locate and study it before it disappears again. Several divers plunge into the middle of the lake and find the anomaly, while Abby and Connor are stuck collecting water samples at the shore. The task seems dull at first, but their opinion quickly changes when the monster approaches. Initially trying to stay as quiet and careful as possible, the pair eventually flee. Trapped, Connor fights back, protecting Abby by smashing a wooden oar against the ancient monster's snout. When Nick and Steven return, Connor reveals that the creature is a mosasaur from the Cretaceous period, which went extinct 65 million years ago. The group is devastated when one of the divers accidentally swims into the anomaly and doesn't make it back before it closes. The monster leaves the lake shortly afterward, making it temporarily safe. Just a few hours later, the anomaly strikes for the third time, this time in the basement of a private home. The homeowner naively assumes it's a flood caused by the washing machine and calls a repairman. While attempting the repair, the man encounters a Hesperornis bird and dies from its attack. Steven starts recalling the events after the attack, telling Nick about his encounter with Helen and apologizing to Abby. Abby isn't upset by his behavior anymore. She's impressed by Connor's courage and his willingness to protect her in a dangerous moment. Learning what's happening in the basement of the private home, the group heads to the scene. There, they find not only the repairman but also the body of the diver. On his hand is a handkerchief belonging to Helen, a clear hint that Nick must travel through the anomaly to reach his wife. Lester insists that Nick go with a military escort, whose job is not only to protect him but also to bring Helen back. The professor refuses and decides to go alone. Using an enlarged oxygen tank and a tether to pull him back, he dives into the basement water and passes through the anomaly. Nick finds himself in the Cretaceous period, surrounded by pterosaurs and other ancient creatures. Exploring the area, he finally locates Helen and comes face to face with her. He demands answers, but she asks him to forget the past, insisting she is a completely different person now. The Helen he knew before is gone. The modern Helen seeks understanding and support. Tired of traveling through time alone, she invites Nick to join her for the incredible experience. She believes humans are just another species doomed to extinction, but Nick doesn't share her perspective. Realizing their paths have diverged, Nick says goodbye and decides to return to his own time. As he swims toward the anomaly, he encounters a massive mosasaur. The predator swims past, but a smaller mosasaur, the same one that had previously entered their time, attacks it. Using a harpoon and quick reflexes, Nick narrowly avoids direct strikes. The scaly predator punctures his oxygen tank, but a larger mosasaur saves him, killing the attacking creature. Nick loses consciousness from the oxygen loss, but Steven pulls him out of the water. Claudia revives the professor, and medics assist him while the military secures the area to carry out their mission. A few armed soldiers head toward the anomaly with one goal: to capture Helen. Nick soon sees that they succeed. His wife has become Lester's hostage. Claudia and Lester interrogate Helen, hoping she'll reveal information about the time-space anomalies and how to predict or stop them. She flat out refuses to cooperate and demands to see her husband, claiming he's the only person she trusts. The interrogation is cut short by an urgent call reporting a monster sighting in a local house. Assuming it's caused by an anomaly, an expert team led by Nick, along with a squad of soldiers, is sent to investigate. Luckily, the call turns out to be a false alarm. The only thing that scared the residents was a harmless python that had somehow slipped into their home through the toilet. A little later, Connor convinces Abby to let him stay at her place for a few days. Taking advantage of the situation, the nerd pretends to be her boyfriend and puts on a show for her friends. Jealous and suspicious that he might be involved in government operations, her friends secretly attach a tracker to Connor's backpack to monitor his location. Soon, Steven notices that Connor is living with Abby, but he accepts her explanation and believes they're just friends. Meanwhile, Helen warns that a new anomaly will open in just a few hours, unleashing saber-toothed predators into central London. These creatures could kill hundreds of people in minutes, turning the city into a bloodbath. The only way to prevent it is to trust Helen and let her show exactly where the anomaly will appear. The group, accompanied by soldiers, heads to a soccer field and enters a utility room. In the kitchen, there's a refrigerator that Helen points to. Skeptical at first, the team doesn't believe her until they open the door and come face to face with the anomaly. Tom and Duncan are tailing Connor and suspect that the soccer field is actually a secret base. Distrustful of the government and its motives, they plan to gather evidence to expose the armies and the official schemes. While the team clears away objects to prepare for the predator's arrival, Helen uses the distraction to slip through the anomaly. Stephen and one of the soldiers rush after her but end up in a strange dimension filled with thousands of anomalies, like corridors leading to different eras in Earth's history. They can't tell which anomaly Helen entered, so they are forced to retreat. Minutes later, the team hears someone approaching the portal and gets ready to shoot on sight. Moments later, dodos, small, flightless birds that went extinct millions of years ago, emerge from the anomaly. They look cute and harmless, so the team easily captures them to send them back. However, one dodo manages to escape after eating Connor's tracker. Tracking its movements, Tom and Duncan catch the bird, suspecting it might be a government experiment. They dream of exposing a major scandal, but instead, the bird bites Tom. The team returns the dodos, but suddenly notices that one of the birds has died. Trying to figure out why, they perform an emergency autopsy and discover a massive worm crawling out of the bird, only for it to die shortly after. It becomes clear that the dodos are infected with a dangerous prehistoric parasite that turns its host into both a resource and a hunter. When Tom nearly attacks Duncan, he realizes something truly horrific has happened and informs Connor. The student tries to alert the group, but it's too late. The kidnapped bird is dead, and Tom has fled in an unknown direction. Meanwhile, Tom heads to a hospital for a checkup. The scanner shows a foreign object inside his body, but he can no longer resist the parasite's influence. He attacks a doctor, injuring him, and escapes. The team locates the doctor in time and saves him before the virus takes hold. The chase for Tom continues, but he finds Abby and takes her hostage. Struggling to resist the urge to attack and bite her, he demands that she reveal the temporal anomaly. The portal disappears, putting Abby in serious danger. She manages to escape, and fortunately, the rest of the team finds them on the soccer field. Tom is now under the aim of multiple rifles, but he manages to restrain himself and not attack his best friend. Apologizing to Connor for his recklessness and lack of trust, Tom fights the parasite within him, and dies. A few days later, another strange event occurs on the golf course. Two friends are playing when suddenly one of them is attacked by an unknown creature. Upon learning about the mysterious death, the group immediately heads to the scene, but it's unclear whether it's a regular predator or something caused by an anomaly. Connor is also called to the golf course, but he's clumsy, and during the chaos, the Celosaurus Rex sneaks into his car and ends up going on an accidental journey with him. Upon arrival, Connor notices Rex and tries to get him back, but the reptile playfully escapes. Meanwhile, Abby, Stephen, and Nick discover an anomaly, but this time it's not on the ground, it's in the air. They quickly spot a massive Pteranodon and assume it's responsible for the golfer's death. Stephen is the only one who disagrees, pointing out that these weak predators feed only on very small prey like fish, reptiles, and similar creatures. Doubts rise when Connor appears on the field and the Pteranodon starts hunting him. The huge predator chases Connor, and the soldiers want to shoot it, but Nick stops them, convinced that Stephen is right. At this point, everyone learns that Abby and Connor have been secretly keeping a Celosaurus. Nick doesn't mind, but he's currently lost somewhere in the forest. The pair stay behind to find their pet while the others go after the Pteranodon. Knowing the bird prefers high ground, they track it to the roof of a tall building. Attracted by the color red, the Pteranodon goes for Stephen's shirt as bait. Nick lures the bird while Stephen shoots it with a tranquilizer, but he does so at the last possible moment. The Pteranodon ends up not only scaring Claudia but also accidentally hitting her in the face. She recovers shortly after but reports that she has partially lost her vision. Checking the bird's droppings, Stephen confirms that it feeds only on reptiles and fish, which means its target wasn't Connor, but Rex. This brings relief, but the question remains, who killed the golfer? While trying to catch their pet, Abby and Connor stumble upon the answer. They discover a tree filled with hundreds of eerie neurognathes, small bloodthirsty birds that react to blood like piranhas. Sensing Claudia's spilled blood, the predators head toward the house and begin surrounding it from all sides. After killing the doctor, they try to break in, but Nick barricades the doors and windows. The predators are too strong and smash the glass, but Nick continues to protect Claudia, whom he deeply cares about. Attempts to call for help fail because the phone lines are down. The only option is a mobile phone, but it's in the ambulance. Risking his life, Nick runs to the vehicle and calls for soldiers. Finding an oxygen tank and a lighter, he sets a few neurognathes on fire, but the rest return to Claudia and enter the house through the chimney. Just when she seems doomed, Helen appears. She lures the birds into a trap and sets off a massive explosion, killing all the predators and escaping before Nick arrives. Later, he once again lowers the Pteranodon with a red cloth, sending it back through the anomaly to its world. Abby, who once dreamed of kicking Connor out, allows him to live in her home, on the condition that he behaves. Some time later, the first anomaly from the Permian period becomes active again. Something has broken through into our world, smashing barriers and going on the hunt. People and lions begin disappearing, though most don't take it seriously. Abby and Connor arrive on the scene first and find bloodstains. They discover the blood belongs to bats, but their DNA is extremely strange and doesn't match any modern species. Meanwhile, Helen returns to the present and meets with Stephen, asking him to arrange a meeting with Nick and Lester. Claudia starts experiencing terrifying visions of monsters and extinct predators, while an unknown force continues abducting and killing people. Soon, Helen reveals that this time the threat isn't from creatures of the past, but from horrifying descendants of modern bats from the future. She offers to help the team and fight the monsters, creatures capable of wiping out humanity today. Nick senses that Helen is lying and hiding something. She admits that the monster has caught her scent, making her prey wherever she hides, and it's better for her to kill the bats than try to run. Later, Stephen realizes that the monster's lair is near the zoo. Rushing there, he protects Abby and tells her to stay as quiet as possible, since the creature hunts by sound. Soon, a military team goes after the monster, but the bat is too fast, instantly killing them. Connor figures out that they can track it using dogs and sensors that pick up its sound frequency. This allows them to locate the creature, but it attacks Connor. He becomes trapped in a car, first saved by Abby, and then Abby is protected by Stephen, who wounds the bat. Continuing the hunt, the group finds the future bat's offspring and realizes it can reproduce. The monster attacks again, killing soldiers, which forces Nick to abduct one of the young bats. Using it as a distraction, he shoots at glass to create overwhelming noise, approaching the creature, and finally fires the last shot. The monster is dead, but they decide to keep the young ones to study the emergence of future anomalies. Helen suggests testing them in the Permian period, sending them through the anomaly into the distant past. Claudia is terrified and begs them not to, but it's too late to change anything. Helen, Nick, and several soldiers travel back in time. They set up camp, and Helen asks to take a few photos. At that moment, Nick realizes he's already seen this photo on a camera when he first discovered it. They've gone back to a time even before the skeleton and camera were found. This is their camp, and it's about to be destroyed. Once he understands, the experts learn that the slain monster was male. Meanwhile, the female slips into the Permian period, attacking soldiers to kill them and protect her young. Fortunately for Helen and Nick, a Gorgonopsid appears, and in a brutal showdown, it devours the young bats and kills the future monster. However, a few of the babies manage to escape and hide, leaving them stranded in the past forever. After burying the soldiers and Captain Ryan, Helen suggests building a new future together, but Nick refuses and leaves to return to the present. When he reunites with his team, he notices Claudia is missing and asks where she is. But the woman has vanished, and no one remembers her. Nick realizes that something went wrong in the past, altering reality, but now the question is, how can he restore everything to the way it was? What matters more for humanity, preserving our civilization, or letting evolution run its natural course, even if it means we vanish? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. Hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.